So today's lecture on Chapter 5 is going to be fairly quick because you've had a lot of material these past few weeks. But there are some really important terms I want us to talk about. You'll notice I don't have anything in terms of a PowerPoint up here right now because for language I really like to just talk freely and give a few examples, and I really feel like your reflection and homework really help drive home the main points of this. But let's talk really quickly about the importance of language. For example, if I were to ask you to give me a stamp, think about in your head right now, what would you give me? Would you give me a stamp like this, a rubber stamp? Or might you give me a stamp like this, a postage stamp? See, essentially, these are the same exact thing, but they're completely different. You can probably see how this can get us in trouble when it comes to communication. Language is really something that makes or breaks our relationships, and how we say things, it matters a lot. We know from your previous lectures and reading assignments that, of course, how we feel about ourselves and our interpretations impact the relationship, but we can really prevent a lot of conflict when it comes to the way that we say things. So please take the time to review everything that you see in Chapter 5, but let me give you just a few personal examples that I share with my face-to-face classes to help you have a better understanding of the importance of language. So I'm going to cover just a few things here. The first one is actually going to be the abstract ladder. You'll see in your PowerPoint that I have something at the top of the ladder and the bottom of the ladder. And what the abstract ladder really is it's a way of making our language more what we call behavioral. So oftentimes when we hear abstract language, which again is very vague language, we'll hear things like, "You're so messy." And we're like, "Oh, I'm not messy. I'm very clean. Have you seen my office? Have you seen my bedroom? Have you seen my car?" And we get very, very defensive. And partly because we feel like that type of language is threatening an image that we want to portray. So what helps is when you look through the abstract ladder, you'll see how you can make your language what we call more behavioral. So it really emphasizes your point and can help the individual that you're communicating with make actual changes. So if I were to go down the abstract ladder, I might say something like, "Oh, you're so lazy." And then I might say, "You're so lazy at home." Still not great, but better. Then maybe I'll say, "You're so lazy at home when it comes to doing the chores." Okay, I'm on ladder 3, that's all right. How about, "You're so lazy when it comes to doing the chores when you know that it's your assigned week to do the vacuuming and the dishes, and you don't do it." Whoa, that's a lot better. But we still might want to change it a little bit. How about, "I feel," you can see that I'm using I feel that you are acting lazy or appear lazy when it's your turn to do the chores, especially when it's your assigned week and you have to do the vacuuming and the dishes, or whatever the chore might be. And this is upsetting because we know the schedule a week ahead. There we go. Now instead of "you're so lazy," you have expressed that you want this individual to change because you can see that there's a schedule that's been known ahead of time, that they have specific chores, that they're actually assigned these specific chores well in advance, and when they don't do them, it leaves you to clean the mess. So that's abstract language, and we change that to what we call behavioral language. There's just a few more terms that I want to talk about. One of them is pragmatic rules, and I want you to think about pragmatic rules. Those are the things that we say that we have just this cultural understanding of what they mean. So the most famous example of this that you'll see as well in your PowerPoint is when you're over at someone's house and they say, "Would you like a drink?" versus, "Would you like something to drink?" Now, if someone asks me if I'd like something to drink, I generally think of something non-alcoholic, like water or juice or coffee. But if someone says, "Would you like a drink?" for some reason, it's been culturally ingrained in me that I think of alcohol, so I might think of beer or wine in that case. Think about your own, set of rules that you have that maybe your friends share in your different cultural groups. Slang can really apply here. There's certain understanding. For example, when someone says cool, that means great or all right, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's cool. And we just have this understanding that that's what cool means. There's also different variations of the word I love you, or the phrase I love you, dependent on the way we spell it. If we're using missing letters like L-U-V, L-V, I love you, the letter U, it changes the way that we feel about that person. So often when I have these discussions face-to-face, students say that the most serious pragmatic rule that we understand is I love you, capital I, and then L-O-V-E and Y-O-U period. That's the most serious form of saying I love you, whereas something like love ya is more like a friendship term. Now, this wasn't really decided anywhere. This is just what we know as a culture. So this is definitely something that I think a lot of people around the world share, which is we have these culturally accepted ways of understanding and taking things in. I'll wrap this up now pretty shortly. There's just two more terms, and that is linguistic convergence and divergence, as well as emotive language. So I want you to think of linguistic convergence and divergence as something like we're including and we're excluding someone. So I'm pulling up an example right now on my computer about linguistic convergence and divergence because there's so many I can think of. And I've included just the definitions really for you to check out on the screen on the PowerPoint. And in this, you'll see that convergence and divergence are connected to what we call affiliation. So what this really means is that the language that we choose can make us feel included, or it can make us feel really separated from one another. So we say it can build solidarity. And what we also say is that language can often, we can adapt. So if we're around someone for a long time, we can start to adapt our speech style, like maybe you develop an accent or maybe you develop new slang, as well as if we are using a different language or we're separated from someone, we experience divergence or we experience our differences from one another. So for example, maybe you're traveling to another country and you hear all the different languages. Like when I was in Italy, I definitely experienced divergence. Everyone was speaking in Italian, and I definitely emphasized my difference through my accent and the word choices that I made. But when I heard a fellow American speak in Italy, it was like we immediately latched onto each other, and our speech styles matched and we felt really connected, not only in terms of our language use, but we knew that we could potentially have some cultural similarities based off language. It's not always true though, but in this case we found out we were both from America. So convergence and divergence, it's our way of adapting to each other and our way of separating ourselves from each other. The last term is emotive language, and that is a term that really announces how we feel about something without actually saying how we feel about something. So it's the word choices that we make. So for example, when one of my good friends wants to go out to a restaurant, he always wants to pick like the cheapest spot. You'll notice the term I'm using, cheap. But to me, I feel he's cheap because I know that he makes good money, but he just never wants to spend it. But for him, he feels that he's a term called thrifty, Like he's really good at spending his money and he knows how to find a good deal. I'm announcing my feelings just by the way that I am saying thrifty or cheap. That's it for now. This went a little bit longer than I thought, but hopefully it helped you understand some of the concepts from Chapter 5. Remember, this isn't all of them. These are just a few I wanted to highlight for you. Thanks!